What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Good Wolf Project. This is your host, Jerry Scarlato, and today's conversation is with Sherman Perryman. Sherman is the host of the Militant Grind podcast. He's also a health and fitness coach, someone who's helped many people change their lives for the better. And you're going to really enjoy this conversation because we talk about Sherman's upbringing and how his life living in LA, where there's plenty of gangs and plenty of temptations to get into a gang, how he overcome the temptation and how those gang members today still push him to become his best self and still make sure to protect him so that he stays out of the gang and keeps himself moving in a trajectory that is helping people and not hurting people. It's a great conversation. You're really going to appreciate it. Make sure you enjoy, like, and subscribe. Here is Sherman Perryman. Sherman Perryman, what is up, brother? How are you today?
I'm amazing, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. So I was on your podcast, The Militant Grind, and I was curious whenever I reached out to you what the militant grind meant, where the
Mhm.
name come from.
Honestly, man, I really cannot recall where the name came from. I
Don't you
feel
love
like,
that?
yeah, because like usually when I had like plenty businesses, like all kind of businesses, right? And I came up with a lot of creative names. But this time, since I'm doing a personal brand, I was like, okay, I need to think about something that really resonates with me and who I am, so it couldn't be anything that could attract people. It was more so like something that I'm about. And so I started just thinking about the type of person that I am and what I talk about and how I was raised. And I was raised very, very militant. Like people have been telling me this my entire life. Like if you've seen how my childhood operated versus like a typical kid, you would be like, okay, yeah, this is totally
Makes
different.
sense. Mm,
But then I couldn't run away from it, so I was like, okay, and then, I've always been a hard worker and a grinder and somebody that hustled, entrepreneur and things like that. So then I was like, okay, I need to combine the two. And then that's where militant grind just popped in my mind. And it's the funny thing about it is that usually when I create a business, I look at the domain name first to see if it's available.
yeah,
Because I because like you could come up with the best idea, but then when it comes to a domain, you don't want to be like .info or .org or
some
because it's
random. Yeah.
yeah, something random or
Mhm.
like you're spelling it different. And when I consult with people, I have to tell them like make sure the domain name is available first. That's because everybody's gonna look for .com when they try to source you out, right?
Mm.
So then when I looked it up, I was like, what? Militantgrind.com is available? I
Wow,
was like,
that's
oh yeah.
surprising. Mhm.
Right. It's very surprising because, usually I'll be like the militant grind, the militant grind, or
Right.
militantgrind.io. It was like, wow, militantgrind.com is available. This must be like, a
That's a
sign
call.
from the heavens, right? So then I was like, all right, this is what I'm gonna rock with. And then people that I grew up with, once they heard about the name, because I have like many focus groups around my friends and family and people that I grew up with, and once they heard it, they was like, "Yeah, this is it. This is you." So
Nice.
then I was like, "Okay, I'm a rock with it." But yeah, that's how it came about, man.
It just kind of popped in and it fit. Well, that worked
Yeah.
out well. So tell me,
Mhm.
so you said your childhood was very militant. What did that look like? What makes you define it as militant?
Well, my dad is an army veteran,
Mm,
and he was actually deployed to Germany for a while, and he was from South Central, so from the hood in LA.
mhm,
So he is a very, tough person, like what somebody call like an a-hole.
mm.
And he had three sons. Like I was born in 86, my other brother 87, my other brother 88.
Oh, wow.
And I guess the way he expressed his love was like, I want my sons to be like upstanding citizens and men, So a man that's coming out of the army, he's a very trained individual, and so now he has an opportunity to train his offspring in the same kind of way. So, Saturday mornings, it wasn't waking up, eating cereal, watching
No Looney
cartoons,
Tunes in the
playing
morning.
video games. Hell no, no. I mean, it was like get up and before you even eat, you're outside and you're working. and you're eating at 1 o'clock. You know, it was like a crazy type of discipline. Like say we remodeled the house so many times. Like I know how to paint, I know how to put down tile, I know how to put down hardwood floor. I could change your tire. You know, I know how to check the spark plugs. I know how to do almost anything. You know,
Handyman.
and it's crazy because a lot of people wouldn't assume that, but I'm like, nah, I really could. I could do it because I grew up doing it, but I do hate it at the same time.
Because
So
you grew
yeah,
up
man,
doing
it
it.
was yeah, it
Mhm.
was like we never hired a gardener, you know, ever. Like that, we had a lawnmower and we were cutting the grass, weed whacker, you know, digging up trenches, all kind of stuff, man. So yeah, it was very, very different. We didn't eat certain foods, chicken, turkey, fish, you know, we didn't eat out. It was just like a strict, very strict regimen. I mean, some things could have been different, but then it's like, hey, I can't change, you know, what made me. You know, I'm
No
definitely
doubt.
doing things a little different than he did. But then it was like, I can't, you know, hey, it is for what I got, you know.
Yeah, well, you found the things that work for you, and obviously there was something that stuck. The militant grind,
Hmm.
stuck with you. So
Hmm.
you decided on the things that worked well, and then you decided on the things that didn't work well, and you took the things
Right.
that did, and you used them, and obviously they panned out for you because they help you become the person that you are, become the man that you are,
Hmm.
and grow the business that you've grown. Because without discipline to do so, you can't. You and I both know, without the discipline to follow through with your word every day and do the actions that need to be done in order to get the things done to grow a business and to show up every day, you can't
Hmm.
you can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, now we see how it all panned out and how it all paid off. You know, my brother that was a year younger than me, he's a sergeant first class in the US Army. You know, his rank is crazy for how long he been in there. You know, when I tell people his rank and they're just like, "What? Wow." But while he was going through basic training, you know, some people were giving up. He was like, this not to say it wasn't nothing, but it was like based off of how we grew up, he
Grew
was
up,
able to
yeah.
get through it with no problem, you know. And
Mhm.
he said, yeah, he's pretty high up there. Like he has soldiers under him, you know, all of that. And then my other brother, he owns a barbershop. He owned one of the biggest barbershops in the city before the age of 30 and employed like 15 people just about. You know, and
Wow.
usually we don't see barbershop owners that's that young, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he went in there, he repaired it himself, he cut the concrete so he could fix a pipe himself. And you know, the stuff that he did, the transformation he did was kind of like, wow, you know, like he learned that as a child and he was able to use that for his business. You know, we were in there painting, we were knocking stuff down, you know, because it looked totally different now versus like how it was when he first got the location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
pretty cool. Go ahead.
yeah. Yeah. So it's like, say, you know, you could look back and you could regret some of the things that you went through, but then it's like, I'm kind of like done with that. I'm more so like, I'm embracing all of it and I have to use it as a tool for something, you know?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, I think when you spend too much time, I think anybody probably could spend time worrying about or thinking about or complaining about the things that didn't go the way they wanted to go when they were a
Hmm.
kid and when they were growing up, right? I mean, you could spend
Right.
anybody, I would imagine, could find something to complain about or find something that just wasn't, well, I'm this way because XYZ happened when I was a kid, and
Right.
it's maybe it's true that it happened, but it's up to you. Like, you're deciding to let it still control you 10 years
Hmm.
down the road, 20 years down the road, whatever. Like, you're making that choice. So you decide to either take the good stuff with you and deal with the stuff that, didn't go the way that you maybe wanted it to go. Of course, as a kid,
Hmm.
you can't, what can you really control? You're basically living the life that your parents want you to live at the time. So
Right.
unless you're like a super introspective kid who can look and reflect as a 12 or 13-year-old and think about how it's helping you, which most 12, 13-year-olds don't think that way, you
Right.
know, just once you get to be adult, you got to go, man, there's, of course, there's things that didn't go well, but there's plenty of things that did. And it's up for you to decide which ones you want to focus on.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm learning that now as an adult because childhood traumas and things that people do affect you, but then it's like, well, he was very hard. Like I have a lot of dark memories from dealing with a person like that because they don't have much compassion,
Mm-mm.
for children when they're a militant person. It's like fuck the love, it's like more so
Yep.
discipline work, let's go. But then me, I'm more so like a balance. And I figured that the balance with me as a father, using that with my children, it works out very well. So they don't really like have any resistance when it comes to me because I show them that I love them, but I'm also hard on them at the same time. Like I will come in, I will give them a kiss, give them a hug, good night. But if I say do something, they're gonna, they still have the fear that daddy could, rule with an iron fist. You know what I mean? So it's like it's a healthy balance. But then I feel like in those times, men probably thought that they couldn't be vulnerable in that kind of way to be effective. But now I'm learning like, wow, it's when you do have that balance with your children.
Yeah, well, especially, in the military, and I don't know if it's probably the same now. It might be a little different, but like in the
Hmm.
military, of course it's tough. Like they're all tough guys. They scream and yell,
Right.
and that's whoever screams and yells the most is the one who rules the roost, and that's the way that it is. And again, unless that person also has a compassionate side to them already through their childhood, or they somehow build that in them, like
Hmm.
that's what they're going to bring to their personal life as well, is my guess. So
Yeah.
that's just something that you have to be able to, like, at some point, one of the people in the relationship has to be able to look at it and go, okay, this is the way that it is, and I can't take things personally too much. I have to be able to pull out the good and use the good, and then build what I believe is going to be helpful as a father, so that I can raise my kids what the way that I believe is going to be an effective way.
Yeah, yeah, and you're totally right about that. Cause and then another thing, like say when I do talk to like friends that do have parents that were in the military, we have almost a similar upbringing.
Mm,
It's the same thing. They're very tough. They're hard on you. There's not really much compassion. So that was the culture back then. But when you're ingrained in that culture, for 4 or 5 years or whatever, it's kind of hard to break out when you become a civilian. Especially when you're raising people to be the best. So
mhm.
and then there's a lot of other things about my dad like that I've learned about him, and I was like, oh damn, it makes sense why he's acting the way he acts.
Yeah, maybe the way he
So
grew up, or maybe the way he was raised, right?
yeah, yeah, definitely. My
Yeah.
grandfather was also in the Navy and he was, a big guy from Texas. Like say I have a sweater from my grandfather's high school, right? I think he graduated high school in 1956
Mhm.
and the sweater is huge. Like I can't even put it on now. And
Yeah.
people say that I'm a big guy, but when people say that I'm a big guy, I don't really take it that serious because I'm like, man, my grandfather was, he was big until he died at 75.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just, so I was just like, okay, yeah, I could see him being kind of, ruling with an iron fist back then too, and he did. So when you come with a level of understanding, you tend to be a little bit more ease, once you start to learn people, learn people's habits, learn like why they do what they do and tend to understand them. But I do not let that be an excuse for any type of like mental or physical abuse. So like I
Mhm.
could understand, but that doesn't mean I have to accept certain habits that you have that could affect me. So say
Mhm.
I have certain boundaries, but I still, yes, I do understand because a lot of people they will say, you're supposed to understand it, or this person went through this, no mind it, but that doesn't mean that I have to keep accepting jabs. That doesn't mean that I could still allow this person to, mess with me.
Right.
So, like, yeah, because I often tell people, like, I understand, but that doesn't mean I have to accept it.
Mhm.
Those are two totally different things.
Yep. No, you're
Yeah.
definitely right about that.
Mhm.
But it's interesting what you're talking about, the I just had an interview with Derek Johnson from Fit with Derek, and he was talking about how generationally his family was either they were either alcoholics or addicts. Like at night, they'd become, they'd become that person, but during the day they would show a different person. They'd show this, enlightened person, or, you know, well zipped up person. And that was a generational thing until he decided to cut that tie and not pull
Mhm.
that to the next generation, to him. So what it sounds like for you is you're doing the same thing, except not with addiction. You're doing it with that militant demeanor.
Right.
Your grandpa potentially was a militant person who ruled with an iron fist. Your dad was the same way, but you're deciding to use part of it, but only the part that shows that you mean business. Like, this is important. But then you're
Yeah.
also pulling in this other part that you're being compassionate about it at the same time, so that the kids are safe. They feel safe. They know
Mhm.
that you love them. They know you care about them, but they also know that you want what's best for them, and that you're gonna, whenever it's time to be serious and you want them to do something, it's time to do it. So it sounds like you're
Yeah.
also like cutting that generational tie, if you will, from
Mhm.
that iron fist ruling.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's funny because I was doing research on my family, and my grandfather told me that he was named after his uncle. Like, say I'm the third Sherman, right? And so my grandfather, he told me that his uncle name was Sherman. That's who his dad named him after. Then I'm on ancestry.com and I'm looking up my name and my family history. And the first Sherman was born in 1899.
Wow.
The first Sherman Perryman.
Yeah.
And I saw his World War I draft card. Like, he actually went
Mhm.
to World War I.
That's
That's
cool.
who I was named after.
Mhm.
And then I ended up figuring out that I had an ancestor. I was in the American Revolutionary War. And,
Mhm.
it's like I feel like this stuff is kind of like in my DNA. Like, say if I go somewhere and I'm just standing and, present, people either
Mhm.
think I'm a security guard or I was in the military.
Yeah.
And I've never been in the military, but
Yeah.
that's just an assumption based off of my demeanor.
Demeanor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. No,
Yeah.
I get that. I actually had somebody, this was right around the time I shaved my head from time to time, and I was at the airport and I had my pack on, my book sack
Mhm.
on, and I had my head shaved, and I'm sitting there and we probably stand the same. I stand nice and straight,
Mhm.
and we were getting in line to get on the airplane, and I'm trying to let this lady go in front of me, and she's like, "No, you go ahead and go. You're in the military." And I looked at her and I was like, I wish I was that brave. I was not in the military. I was like, I appreciate it, but I was not that brave to go in the military. So
Yeah.
that's funny that I can definitely see that, just the way that you sit, that your posture is probably the same. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I get that all the time. Like, say I was at the club, right? And
mm,
I'm wearing a gold chain and I have on like a Versace jacket. And I don't look like I'm just, say I'm wearing all black though. I'm
mhm,
wearing boots and I'm just standing there and people are like, do you know how to get to? And I'm like, I'm not security. Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, what
yeah,
about me looks like I'm a security guard? But then they weren't really like, some people will look at you and they'll just take whatever they see. They're not really like detailed, but they just took, oh, he's wearing black, he's standing straight and he's like looking pretty serious. Oh, he must be security. And I'm like, man, you don't see the way I'm dressed. Like, why would I? And that's that was kind of funny though. But then I was like, hey, what do you expect? This is
mm,
what it is.
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
So you've been in coach. How long have you been in coaching, Sherm?
Just a few months actually.
Really?
But yeah, let somebody, I mean, I like say when it's like bona fide, like, yeah, but then I've always been coaching people, but I just didn't know that I was a coach. So
Yeah, that's fair.
like say it was like say, I gave an example on a previous podcast where um I was like, okay, so I do taxes, right? I do taxes. I've been doing that for 14 years. And some people, they'll be like, no, I want to do taxes with you in person. And I'll be like, okay, whatever. I can knock it out, virtually pretty ease. But then they want to see me and they want to talk to me about certain issues or certain thoughts that they have, like just to get my feedback. and it was kind of weird to me because I'm like doing taxes and I'm having these personal conversations
Yeah,
that
they're
have
talking
nothing
to you
to do
about
with
other stuff.
taxes. Yeah, so it's just like I started to think about I'm like, what are you really known for? Like how do people look at you? Like, and it's so funny because when I started this business, I feel like the amount of support that I've got from my circle of influence has been like nothing I've ever done.
Mm,
I'm talking about people are like, this is perfect for you. Keep going. Any like say when I was sick and I was just like, because you tend to have these thoughts in your mind, like you go back and forth about things.
mm,
And I'm just getting random texts like, hey man, I love what you're doing. Keep going. Like this is wonderful, man. And it's just and then just to see the type of responses that I'm getting just for like, the only like a couple months that I've been doing this has been crazy. But
mhm.
then I've also known that when we do something that we're supposed to do, it's like you're kind of like on the fast track and and you don't have much resistance as if you were doing something that wasn't really in alignment with you.
Mm.
So
That's
when you
good.
do things within who you are, it's like the universe is like, all right, go. Here's this. Here, take this, take this, take that. I'm getting interviews with people that's like, I'm like, wow, I can't even, like I don't even know if this really would have happened with anything else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's there's a lot of truth to that. And I think a lot of people take that for granted because a big thing now, I will say a big thing now is being an entrepreneur. And I don't believe necessarily that everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur. And I guess when I say that is a business owner, meaning like employees, layers of things that you need to do, holding a
Hmm.
bunch of hats in your hand. Like, I don't believe a lot of people are meant to do that. However, there's a very good potential for people to fulfill a solopreneur kind of avenue where they get out on their own and they do something like this. They go start a podcast or they go start an Instagram account where they are focusing solely on something that they just enjoy, something that they like a lot and they enjoy a lot and they do very passionate content about it and they talk to people who
Hmm.
I don't know who are in the industry and they make things about it and they
Hmm.
end up actually making a life out of it that can sustain them and it's something that they actually enjoy and what you notice is that it's actually exactly what you're saying like you don't feel that resistance, you don't feel that
Right.
like pressure that's like oh I gotta grind through this, I gotta push through it. It's not like it's always easy, it's not like it's always like oh fluffy, like I work for myself, great, I do what I love, great, this is easy. Like it's not always the case. There's tough times, it's hard, sometimes there's things you got to do that aren't fun, but
Hmm.
at the end of the day, like when you're in flow state and you're talking like you and I are sitting here talking, we'll sit here we were on your podcast, we went through almost an hour and a half podcast and it felt like it was 10 minutes long because we were
Yeah.
just sitting there, jamming back and forth about stuff and it just felt like, man, but it's hard for someone to understand how this is what we do. Like this is
Hmm.
this is what we do. This is what helps us grow.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right about that because I say it's hard for some people to host and be a guest on a podcast. Like it's hard to carry a conversation consistently for that long and just be focused into it. But then this is going back to you speaking about being an entrepreneur, I feel like that's more so a tainted type of thing. I feel like a lot of people don't really understand what it takes to be an
Mm,
entrepreneur. And it's more so like, I don't want to work. I want to work for myself
mm,
because I don't, it's like, nah, you really have to, you have to be super locked in. Like, if you want to be an entrepreneur and you don't like your job now, just know that you're going to work twice as hard and not make as much money for at
yeah,
least 2 years. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it's not, I was up till midnight one night working on my YouTube thumbnails. And it's funny because I said it to my guy Nico. I was like, Nico, what do you think about this? He was like, I don't like it. And da 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 da. I'm like, man, I was up for hours doing this.
Mm,
And then I changed all of my thumbnails. The next thing you know, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it again. Change them all. Then I worked with Nico. He was like, I was like, damn, I understand what he's saying. I'm
mm,
gonna lower my pride and I'm gonna say, okay, you know what? I'm gonna do it this way. And then I changed them all again. And I'm talking about at least like 30, 35 thumbnails, so it
Yeah.
took me hours.
Mhm.
I hated it, but then it was like this is just a part of the process. It's also growing, learning more, saying getting feedback from people. So right now I'm trying to pick out a new logo and I have like, hey, what do you think about this? Having little focus groups or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
it's a lot tougher than what people think. And, it's like you really have to be well-rounded. And I think you mentioned before, you have to wear a lot of hats. So I was actually on a podcast with an attorney and I told her like, oh yeah, I have my insurance license. Oh yeah, I do taxes. Oh yeah, I know how to do this and I know how to do that. But I built up these skills because I didn't have money to pay people for them at a time. So I had to do it myself and I had to learn myself, but then while you're learning, you have to know that you're gonna mess up and it's a muscle, like my friend told me he writes scripts and stuff in Hollywood and he was like, I know how to do it because I've been doing it for a long time. Like I've been pumping that muscle, and
Mhm.
so one advice that I did get from someone that were like, just be guest talk to people, you're gonna end up getting a flow. Like you're gonna know how to talk. You're gonna listen to yourself. You're gonna be like, oh, okay, that was a good point. Maybe I should do it this way or that way.
Mhm.
But a lot of times people get into things and they don't understand that they have to grow that muscle. Like and another thing, right? So my background is sales. So me being a salesperson, we learn techniques on how to talk to people, and the psychology of communication. So my cousin also has a podcast and he was a car salesman and I have my real estate license. I used to be a car salesman, right? So he was like, the reason why it's like this for us is because our background is sales. Like when you're a salesperson, you learn how to talk to all different types of people
Mhm.
from all walks of life. And so I was like, oh, that's why, it makes sense. But somebody who's like, worked at a desk or as an accountant and, they're just typing words all day, how are they ever going to start a podcast?
Mhm.
You know? So, like, it's not got like, you
Yep.
didn't have to talk to people. Like, you don't know how to talk to people from the Midwest or from the South or learn accents or,
Mhm.
talk to somebody that you never met. I did loans too. So I had to talk to people from all over the country and, develop a relationship with them over the phone. So, yeah, man, it's like a lot of skill. And I also feel that with that being said, if someone does want to be an entrepreneur, they should be one with the skill set that they've been building, for a few years, and it kind of like just seems natural to them, and that'll give them a less barrier of resistance. Like say if I was a plumber or landscaper, how the hell am I going to start a podcast? Like I barely know how to use a computer. I barely know how to really like I don't have to type emails and do follow-ups and things like that, So I'll probably be like, oh, well, maybe you should do, I don't know, architecture or something within that wheelhouse. So you won't have to take, so many years to develop this new skill. You can, but it's going to take some time.
Yeah, that is such a good point, and I love, like, the analogy of the muscle that you use. I think what
Mhm.
people it's funny, so I this is a long story that I'm gonna try and compress. I,
Mhm.
closed a business slash handed over a business a couple months ago. It's a long story how that actually works,
Mhm.
but I had to close it in order to basically let somebody else take it over. So I closed it down. They took it over, and it was a fitness studio I had for 10 years. I don't know if we actually got to talk about this on your podcast at all. I had a fitness studio for 10 years called Thriveology, and how I got to closing it down, that's another story for another day. But
Mhm.
had to close it down, didn't have to, chose to close it down, handed it over to somebody else, and they took it over. It was actually one of the members who had been a member since the very beginning of it. So
Mhm.
when I told him I was thinking about closing it, he's like, "Well, I'd like to be able to take it over." I'm like, "Well, that'd be great." So him and his son are running it now. Well, a month into running it, I get this random text from him, and this is a guy who's ran a business before. He owned a trophy business. They manufacture trophies, and it's a pretty big
Mhm.
business here in the Cincinnati area. And he
Mhm.
texts me randomly, and he's like, "Jerry, I just want you to know with all the stuff that's going on at this place, I don't know how you did what you did with this place. I don't know how you were the one that did, that had all these hats and did all these things. Now, that's not I'm not saying that I did a bunch of things, meaning like I had a team and the team did a ton. Like one of them is sitting
Mhm.
behind the camera right now, and she's grateful enough to still be able to help me, but she still works at the gym too. Like they did a ton. We had 3 coaches, we had Jana, so we had a team and they did a lot. But still,
Mhm.
with everything that they were doing, there was still a bunch that I had to do. And it was not like sit there and look pretty, right? It's it's a problem solving stuff. Like
Right.
like you're talking about, like a lot of our stuff was ran off technology. So when technology goes down, you got to figure out how to fix it.
Mhm.
And if you're the kind of person, like you said, who is in lawn care and you want to go over to this other area of work or start a business in this other area that requires technology, but you're not good with technology, you better real quick learn how to fix technology whenever it goes down because it's going to go down. You know this,
Right.
like
Right.
working with cameras on the podcast, cameras and
Mhm.
audio and the computer, and it's not working, and you have to figure it out. So, it's
Mhm.
it's I don't want to say simple things, but it's stuff like that that people don't think about. Like, I'm going to go start a business. Cool. But you have to realize that really you're creating about 10 jobs for yourself is what you're doing.
Yep. Yep. Yep, seriously, yeah. Hooking up the mics, like, the lighting and all that. It's like, yeah, that's a learned skill. But then also I made mistakes. And I was like, oh man, like I said, I recorded a whole podcast. Then I watched, it, I was like, damn, that doesn't look right. But I still have to put it out. So, okay, next thing you know, I'm gonna adjust this. Like, I mean, you could probably see right now that my background looks totally different than, when we had our
Hmm.
podcast. So I had to like, okay, I need to change this. Okay, this has to be darker. Okay, let me do this. Let me, adjust all of these different things. So yeah, it's always a work in progress, man. And then it's like also just working with what you have is sometimes like all you could do. Like, things aren't gonna be perfect when you first start.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
that's one thing I've
rarely.
have learned about, like, show business is that, man, you'll be surprised at some of, like, besides the set, like, outside of the set, you're in, like, a garage or you're in, like, something that looks like a dungeon, but they make this area that people could see look very, very nice.
Mhm.
'Cause that's the only thing that's being recorded. Other than that, it's like whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like really being creative is one of the biggest things too. You have to be super creative when you're an entrepreneur. So that's why I coined the term when people ask me like, "What are?" I'll be like, I'm just start telling them I'm a creative entrepreneur. Like, that's one of the
Good.
things that I am. Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think,
Mhm.
a lot of people look at that and they go, well, I'm not a creative person. And well, first of all, if you're telling yourself you're not a creative person, it's going to decrease the likelihood that you build any creativity. You are a creative person. It's just a matter of where you're creative right now, right? Not
Right.
necessarily like that you have to be this artistic person that can like paint things or put colors together. Like that's what I think a lot of people think about when they think creative. Not that
Mhm.
it's something that you shouldn't build, because again, as an entrepreneur, there's probably going to be a time like you're talking about where you're going to have to build your own website, or you're going to have to
Oh yeah.
make your own design, or you're going to have to make your own thumbnails. Like you're going to have to do that for a while.
Mhm.
And until you get to the point where you don't have to do that anymore, you better build that ability. Like it's not as simple as like I'm a personal trainer, so I'm going to go start, my own business, my own studio, and that's going to be that. What are the
Mhm.
other things that are going to come along with it? But I think another thing that's important here, you were talking about building a muscle. The one thing that people don't look at when they think about personal development, this is kind of like where I'm kind of like shifting a little bit here, but when they think about personal development, what a lot of people don't appreciate is that you as a human being are the thing that makes your life.
Mhm.
And people look at like reading books, working out, problem solving, learning to do different things as a pain instead of as the skills and abilities that make you.
Mhm.
So there's a saying that if you took all the money in the world and you distributed it evenly amongst everybody, that eventually, over time, it would end up in all the same hands. It would end up
Right.
in all the same hands that currently have it. But it's not because they're thieves. It's not because they're going to go steal it from everybody. It's because they have the skills and abilities to build the money, to quote unquote attract the money to them. They have the skills and abilities, whereas everybody else who currently doesn't have a real strong financial backing on themselves, they don't have those skills and abilities. They either blow the
Mhm.
money, they're too busy consuming, too busy trying to buy things with it. They just don't know how to keep it or hang on to it or grow it or make it more. So, like, having skills and abilities and building skills and abilities is what life is about. Like, that's what makes you, and that's what brings your value to the world. And I don't think people appreciate that enough.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't think they do at all because it's more so it's like everybody's on the fast track.
Mm,
Like say for me, I do a lot of research, reading, research and development is one thing that like a lot of people, have to start doing because I have noticed that when I do give some people criticism on their business or how they should operate, they kind of take it personal, but then it's like once I do, see that I'm like, okay, they're not gonna last that long.
mm,
You know, it's like, oh well, it's like, I mean, I understand. You just gotta take the criticism and you have to just keep going, or they'll start a big argument with me, like say, and then later on in time they end up seeing like, okay, this person was right. Now I get why they were telling me this. But then I'm like, man, unfortunately, it had to get to that point. But it's like in business, you often have to recreate and reinvent yourself in order to stay ahead of the curve, and it's not like a personal thing. It's more so you're doing this to acquire clientele. You're not doing this just so you could look good for people,
mm,
and I feel like that's the difference. It's more so like a lot of things are egotistical now. So I'm not sure if you checked out Nico, but Nico's a pretty harsh, guy. You know what I
mm,
mean? Like it doesn't seem like he's full of fluff. So he's been looking at some of my stuff and he's telling me things. And I'm like, I'm listening. I'm like, man, if this was somebody else, they'll probably take it personal or have
mm,
excuses or whatever. I was like, what do you think about this? He was like, do you really like that? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, that's why I'm asking you. But then it's like, but then he kind of, he gave me a perspective. I was like, oh, okay, now I see. And I changed up everything,
mm.
based off of that one person's input. But you have to like really lower your ego when it comes to running a business, or else you're not going to be successful. That's why companies pay millions of dollars just for feedback. How like I used to work for a company that did research, right, for Bank of America and certain other companies, right? So all we would do all day was call Bank of America clients and do a survey. That's all we did
Mhm,
over the phone the whole time.
mhm,
And I'm like, so they're really paying this company this much money just to have people call and, because it was contract. I mean, they were paying me, but then they were always like, they have to pay all of these people. And we basically like made our own schedules. Like we could come in, we could work how many ever hours we wanted, you know what I mean? Whatever, so it was pretty cool. But I was just like, wow, this is crazy. But that worth it in the end? I mean, I guess so. The company's still standing.
yeah, I
They
mean, and
probably fixed some things that people had issues with. Like the majority of people have these issues based off of these interviews. So we need to go in and we need to fix some things up.
so how do you get someone to start putting their guard down?
Honestly, I have no idea. I feel like like I'll just say you just have to tell them what's up, and then later on it's probably gonna hit them. Like that's really what it's about. Like I often see a lot of businesses that I've worked with that did not listen to me and now they're not in business anymore. But I promise you, if they listen to me and listen to my advice, they'll still be in business. Like there's businesses that have listened to my advice that's thriving, but that's hey, they learn, they sat there and they listen. Okay, yeah, wow, I am gonna look at that. But when it's more so like you're a solopreneur or whatever, you know what I mean? You kind of, oh man, I'm gonna do it my way.
Mhm.
but it's not
Mhm.
about you. It's about the people. You're here to serve the people, not
Mm.
serve your own ego and serve yourself. So that's where the difference is. Because some people do what I do and they be like, "Well, I don't know how you do it." It's like because I know how to deal with people. Like you kind of gotta talk to people a certain kind of way. You have to understand people a certain kind of way. Some people are gonna take this personal. You have to be willing to diffuse situations. So when you're working with the public, you have to have a certain type of temperament and just know that some people aren't going to be satisfied. Some people aren't going to be this, that, and the third. But as long as you lay out the intentions first and have them agree to it, like a contract, which all the companies do, they can't say anything once they agree to what the contract or however you guys were going to do business. Like what can they say? Like they can't say, "Oh, well,
Mhm.
you." It's like, no, it's there in the contract. That's why you have to sign contracts with people. That's another thing. But then you also have to lay out all of the intentions up front.
Mm.
So say, I'm not sure. I think you probably gonna know who I'm talking about. But there was this one guy who had a package, right? And he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna build a funnel out, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that." And I asked him, like, "Hey, once you get the deposit, when are you because this is what you have in this advertisement. Oh, don't worry about that and da 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 da. And I'm like, hold on, this is what you've said.
Mhm.
Like, no, I am. If somebody's gonna pay you, you have to tell me when is this gonna be produced. But then I learned that a lot of people weren't satisfied because the guy charges thousands of dollars and he just sends you like a screenshot on how to post every day. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And stuff like that and have like an hour consultation. And
Mhm.
so it was like, he said you can make money doing what he does, but he never told you what he was gonna do. So it's like, hey, that's really what it is, because I honestly, if I would have paid as much money as some people paid, I would have been pissed off. Because
Mhm.
I'm expecting like if I'm paying thousands of dollars, I want to take almost a 40-hour course, like I
Mhm.
want to I want some one-on-one time. I want you to look at my stuff and say, "Hey, why don't you
Mhm.
do this, change this, that, and the third." But the only thing people were seeing was that, "Oh, this guy makes a lot of money. He's going to show me the way and I can make that much money too." But then it's like the way that guy makes his money and what he uses his tools, you don't have those tools. And
Mhm.
number one, you're also not him. Everybody cannot pay him and make money as a coach. Like it's not gonna work. Like you don't have that person's story, you don't have that person's screen presence, you don't have anything that that person has. Like he's
Mhm.
he's posting every day, all night, talking shit in the camera. And if you're not willing to do that, then it ain't for you. But then there's also people that become like, uses his swag and things like that, become miniature versions of him. And you can kind of see the inauthenticity. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like one
Mhm.
thing that I liked about you, man, I was gonna comment on it, but I was pretty busy. I was like, okay, this dude is in Kentucky, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so he's in Kentucky and he actually picked up a log and he's walking with the log. I think you were walking with it or doing some type of
Yeah.
movement with it,
Throw
but I was
threw it
like,
over my shoulder a bunch,
yeah,
walk up and down a hill. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but I'm like, that sounds like something a person from Kentucky would be doing. Somebody that lives in the woods,
Yeah.
somebody that, it was like, I love that. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? It was like, man,
Felt authentic.
it
Mhm.
felt authentic. But if you were like, okay, I'm from Kentucky and I'm riding in a Lamborghini driving around, it's like, no, bro, come
Wait
on,
a
man.
second,
Like,
wait a second.
right.
Mhm.
It's like
You should be
we
driving
know.
a big Ford F-350 with tires on it. That's what you should be driving.
Come on.
Mhm.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you're not gonna be in a Rolls Royce driving around in Kentucky. If you have
Mhm.
like a high, is it called high country
Mhm.
Silverado?
Mhm. Mm. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
if
so.
you had that, nice rims driving around, ATVs, I'll be like, okay, yeah, I like this guy.
Mhm.
But I started to notice about myself is that I really don't care who people are or where they're from or what they do. I just want people to be authentically them.
Mm.
And that's what I love. You could be as long as you're yourself, I really could care less. You know what I mean? Like, I never lived in. I'm from Los Angeles. One of the most international city in the world.
Mhm.
I know if you see me, like, bro, where are you gonna get a log from? Like, this isn't. I
Do you
know,
even
like, you
have
should.
trees in Los Angeles?
Right, like it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
But then it's
I had to
like
order this
people.
from Kentucky.
Right, right. I mean, I got a tumbleweed in front of my door right now. I don't know how that happened, but then it's like,
That's funny.
like that's the thing. Like, we have to be. I feel like that's where the disconnect is. It's like it's not authentic. Like, say for me, right? I had a logo and the guy was like, "Yeah, man, I don't know how this is you." Like, I had a kettlebell in my logo, right? And the guy was like, "I mean, do you even work out with kettlebells?" I'm like, "Never. I never worked out with kettlebells. Like,
Mm,
that's not my thing." He was like, "Well,
mm,
why is this in your logo?" And I was like, "Oh man,
mhm.
that's true." Because like we talked about on my podcast, everybody has a different style of fitness. Like it's not just about weights. Like, it's also what kind of weights, how you work out. This is and the third. Like, everybody has their different style. And nobody's necessarily wrong. You know what I mean? They're just moving weight. Like, that's what it is. You're just creating resistance. Some guys like to use the bands. Some people want to use the cables most of the time. Some guys like to do, squats with just the weight and they're just going down. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And
mhm.
that's cool for them. Like, I saw a friend doing that the other day and I was like, I'll never do that, but I just like the fact that he's moving. Like, it is
Yep.
what it is. But then it's like, okay, now it's who's really who. There's a lot of people out there that are, creating these personas, but then it's like we could also read energy and we could tell that this isn't authentically you. Like, there's something a little
Mm.
off about it, that we see, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I've learned that, like, and it screams on the camera, man. Like, I was it was funny because I thought that so one night I was like, I'm gonna just start doing think pieces, right? And I'm gonna just write out some things that I could say. Like, I written it down, like I typed it up. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna read this and then I'm gonna record it, right? And so I went to my guy's house and he had a cool setup. And where I was like, okay, I'm about to do it. And he was in his room because it was also like a high rise apartment. And I like the scenery and all that. And so he's heard me talking on the camera and he was like, "Man, it seems like you reading something." And I was
Mhm.
like, "Fuck, man, this ain't
Mm,
gonna work."
mm.
Like, it's not, nah. Cause it's like, and
Not
then when I
jiving.
listened to it, I was like, nah. So this
Mhm.
is what we can do. I'm gonna have my camera on and I just want you to just, we're just gonna have a conversation. So he will ask me a question and then I'll respond back to him, but I'm just going off the top of my head. And doing that, I was like, oh shit, this is really like I hit a couple good points on this. Wow.
You surprise
Like
yourself.
yeah, I like it
I know
just
that feeling.
worked.
Mhm.
Yeah, it just worked, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, it has to be if it's not real, because I'm not an actor, so. But then the actor also is like, they practice, they're into it, and
Right,
they have different methods on
right.
how they get into it. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But then it was just like, wow, man, like you could really feel the inauthenticity when it's not there.
No doubt. I can totally resonate with that. Back in excuse me, everyone assumes, not everyone, but, like, anybody I talk to assumes that, like, I was a jock in high school, played football, ran track, played
Hmm.
basketball for a little bit, played football in college, and mostly that stereotype is like stuck up, snobby, doesn't really talk to anybody else, picks on the band kids, like that kind of person. And a
Yeah.
lot of people assume that about me because of that. And so, like, one of the things that I always like in high school, and I think about this, and I don't know where this came from. Actually, I do. I grew up in Baton Rouge. I don't know if we talked about that. I grew up in Baton Rouge, and in Baton Rouge, I went to a school where I was the minority. Like,
Hmm.
I was a minority. So I guess I grew up in a place where it's like everyone just accepted each other. Like, this is just who we are. So when I moved to, at the time, was Fort Thomas, Kentucky, which, if you've ever seen the movie Friday Night Lights, like, it's basically
Hmm.
Friday Night Lights of Northern Kentucky. It's football and It's mostly a bunch of white kids and white families and so on and so forth. And I moved there, and it was a culture shock to me because it's a bunch of white kids, and I'm like, this is weird. Like I'm not used to this.
Hey,
So yeah, it was weird to me. And I'm like, so anyway, like going through high school and stuff, I never judged anybody on like what they did. Like if they were in the band, cool, you're in the band. I'm cool, I can jive with you. And I had groups of friends over here, and they were the potheads, and I had groups of friends over here, and they were the sports kids, and I had groups of friends over
mhm.
here, and they were the car guys. The only thing that ever bothered me was the person who tried too hard, right?
Yeah, no, seriously.
Like the
Yeah.
person who tries too hard. They're like
Mhm.
trying real hard to be cool. And you just want to shake them and go, dude, chill. Like,
Right,
just chill, dude. Just be you. Like, it's no big
right,
deal. Like, we're still going to like you. Just be you. Take a deep breath.
right.
And that's the only thing that killed me about people when they tried too hard. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, it's okay if you're not like this athletic person or you're this car guy over here, but like, just be the person that you are. And that's okay. And that's actually what people are going to be attracted to. It's not this forced demeanor that you're trying to like show to the world that is clearly not real.
Yeah, nah, bro, I have. I went to a HB historically black college, and it was all male school. I went to Morehouse in Atlanta, right? And so it was just funny how, because back then, black men were conceived as being like tough, gangster or
Mhm.
whatever, blase, blah. You know what I'm saying? Especially
Especially
black
from
in the
LA.
yeah, in the early 2000s. So,
Hmm.
right, right back. Yeah, LA, right? So say I'm from Carson, my best friend's from Compton, and we grew up together, right? So we're chilling, right? And we're at school, and this guy was like, yeah, I'm from Compton. And we were like, oh, really? Okay, what part of Compton? Oh, well, not really. I moved to, Rancho Cucamonga or whatever and we were like, bro, come on, man. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? But there were so many people that tried to make it seem like they were from like say underserved community or like just because they were from LA because they wanted to seem tough. And some of them are still doing it till this day. And like me and my, partners laugh about it. It's like, man, like just let it go. Just be you. It is okay. Like you don't have to try to be this type of person. Like say one of my friends was like, yeah, I went to our friend's house and his dad was in there playing classical music and drinking tea and you know what I mean? It was like, talking super proper, but you're trying to act like you're this type of person. Like if you go to my house and you meet my dad, you'll be like, okay, yeah, I could, my dad
Right.
is a real South Central guy. You know what I mean? Like he's,
Hmm.
like it's kind of hood, you know what I mean? So it's
Hmm.
like, it's just crazy. It's like, bro, just be you. Like my uncles were gangsters, like, but then it was like more so like, I mean, they told me about the stuff, but it wasn't like they would be damned if I get into the stuff that they were into. Like they would be pissed. Like nobody who was really about that life wants their offspring to get into that same type of lifestyle
Hmm.
because they know what they went through. Like hearing your uncle talk about his best friend that got killed, that pains him till this day isn't a cool thing. Like that's not a badge of honor. You know what I mean? Or him having to be in the house because people trying to kill him all the time. It's like, I start to look at it like, man, it's like, why do people need to do this?
Hmm.
Like almost everybody, a lot of people were inauthentic and just tried to be something that they're not though at that school at that time. Like it was pretty intense. But for me, I was just like always myself, and people felt that. Like, yeah, I went to school in the city. Yeah, I went to school, kids from Compton, Watts, South Central. But, I'm not really, you know what I'm saying? I'm like not on that type of time though. Like, that's not who I was raised to be. If I have to take something there to protect myself, I have to do what I have to do. But I'm not walking around like I'm a thug or anything like that. Like that wasn't a part of me. And I felt like that's probably why a lot of people connected with me and to me because I've always been myself. Like say I have a lot of friends that are thugs and I'm talking about like some of the most feared people in Los Angeles. I'm
Hmm.
talking like I wouldn't even take a picture with these people and post it on the internet because I know it's gonna have some slack. Well known.
Hmm.
Hey Sherm, how's it going, man? Yeah, this my boy Sherm. And I have to keep these relationships private because
Mhm.
I know how people will perceive them, you know? Like I don't even want people to know I'm connected like that. But I'm able to be around these people because I'm authentically me. They know I'm not trying to be like them. They know I'm not like them. They know I'm not about that life. They know I wasn't in the gang. They know but they know I'm from there. You know, like I lived in the area and I know people. But it's like, some people just want to save face, but also know that like street guys, they can read that, because all they
Mhm.
do is read people all day.
Mhm.
But they could see it. They can be like, nah, this person ain't, he's doing too much or whatever, So then at the end of the day, I'm like, man, people will accept you for who you are, no matter who you are. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to act like, whatever, like just be you and people will accept it. Like it's okay. And I'm just glad that I picked that up early on because there's a guy that just got out of prison that was an R&B singer. And, he stayed at my house for a while, just like for my roommate as a favor. And he was like, man, bro, like I really appreciate you because we came in here, you didn't judge us, you wasn't acting funny, blah, say blah, everything was cool and I appreciate that. And he said that to me. That stuck with me for the rest of my I don't even know this guy's name, but it stuck with me for like the rest of my life where it was like, man, you really just have to set people who they are and always be you, you know?
Yeah, that's powerful, man. It's
Yeah.
funny what you said Rancho Cucamonga there a while back, and I'm having like flashbacks of I forget which Friday it was, but it was either
Oh,
next
try
Friday
next
or
Friday.
yeah, was
Yeah.
that what it was? Next Friday
Hmm.
when he moved in with his aunt and uncle or something like that. I can't really remember. Those were some of my favorite
Yep.
movies, by the way.
Yeah.
Um,
And I know people from there,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah.
those were some of my favorite movies, most definitely. But
Hmm.
what do you think? What do you think kept you from? So, like growing up in that area around people, some people who were pulled down literally a gang path, some people who, luckily enough, like you, who were able to keep themselves on a different path. Like, how do you keep yourself from getting pulled down, the gang path? Where I'm assuming it could have been pretty easy for you to
Oh,
to
what?
to go down that road.
Yeah, well, all my friends were in gangs. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, like some of my friend I went to high school with some of the most treacherous gang members in the city, like one of the most fear. I went to Crenshaw High School. You
Hmm.
know who the rapper Nipsey Hussle is?
Hmm.
Yeah, so the gang that he's from, I went to high school with all of them, so
Hmm.
he didn't go to that high school though, but I went to high school with the same gang that he's from, right?
Hmm.
So it was, and it's like say if you're going to high school with them, like the whole school is almost that gang and then another gang, it was just effortless. Like I could have said, "Hey man," cuz people were like it was a thing, like they were giving you the gang handshakes and you weren't even from the gang, but they were like, man, you here though.
Hmm.
But then for me, it was my uncle and my dad, and my uncle also grew up in the area, and he just like, he just gave me the reality of it. I feel like people really have to know what they're getting themselves into. You know what I'm saying? So it's like hold on real quick, once they do that, they have to they gotta they have to make a decision,
Yep.
like you have to know, like say before you get into this, you have to know that it's gonna, people might try to kill you, you might go to jail, you might have to go through all of these things. And luckily, well, not luckily, but my next door neighbor growing up, he was always in and out of jail. And so he would talk to us about the reality of him being in prison. So I didn't, it wasn't a nice thing. Like I never, I had elders that would talk to me about different lifestyles and I'd be like, hell no. Like I'm not
Hmm.
trying to, nah, I'm not trying to do that. Like my uncle would literally come to our house, sit me and my brothers in a room and talk about the stories that he went through, back in South Central in the 80s where crack was rampant and crime and violence. And, it was crazy back then. Like you couldn't even leave your water hose outside because
Hmm.
a crackhead will steal it, and they put you have bars up on the windows, people
Hmm.
break into your house. Like it was crazy. But then when you have somebody that will actually like talk to you about things like, hey, like, because to him, he'll be damned if anything happened to his nephews. He will lose his mind. So he took preventative action which is like talking to us about these things. Still to this day, my uncle will call me and talk to me for about an hour. Like, hey man, what's going on? But that was his thing. So I have to give that up to, like, my elders, people that I grew up with, that'll tell me like, hey man, nah, this isn't for you. Even if I was like to get angry or whatever, right? And so, like, say in LA, if you growing up and you have friends that are from a gang and they like you, and like, say all of my friends, if anything was to happen to you or about you and you weren't about that life, they'll put their life on the line for you.
Mm,
Like, no, no, this isn't for you. You stay. Like, I remember a situation happened, and one of my guys who was actually from the projects pulled up to my house so fast. I'm talking about with a gun in his lap. Like, what's up? This ain't for y'all. No, I like this time. I like to party like this, but no, this ain't for y'all though.
mhm,
This is my type of thing. You know what I mean? So it was just like, with that being said, you kind of have to, you just have to know, like, people will tell you, like, no, you're better than this. You
mm,
get, you actually, this ain't for you. Even still to this day, I'll get upset and talk to one of my friends, man, you have to be bigger than that. Don't worry about small things. I
wow,
actually had a conversation with a friend I grew up with. I got into a heated argument with somebody, and he was like, man, you a giant. You ain't supposed to be worried about stuff like this. But, if it was to happen to him, who knows? He might gun him down or something. I don't
right,
know. You know what I
right,
mean? Like, it's
yeah,
just but then when it comes to me, it's like, nah, man, you have to be, this type of person that represents us and where we
mm,
come from and the things that we had to deal with. So
mhm,
then with that being said, I was like, man, I know my mission, you know, because it's like, just to be honest with it, like, some of my friends are on drugs, some of my friends
mm,
in jail, some of my friends, yeah, it's dead. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Like, I went to within the past year and some change, I went to 3 different funerals,
mm,
like, where
mhm,
my friends are still dying from violence.
mm,
Like, and I'm not talking about like people that I just know of. Like, no, we went on family vacations together. They slept at my house.
mm,
We were always together. We hung out together every day. Like that, like, it's not like, oh, I know of a
yeah,
guy. Like,
just a guy
these were
that I
my
knew,
real,
yeah,
yeah, these were my real people. So, man, it's just, that's really the reality of it. You know what I'm saying? But then
mm,
with that being said, it's like I have to it hurts, but then it's like you have to just be something greater and do greater things because of the things that these people went through, and the things that a lot of people fall victim to that were good people, but they just fell victim to these different things. And that's probably like something that keeps me more so, like focused and dedicated and things of that nature, man. Because it's like, wow, I'm looking at this guy's obituary, and he couldn't even be a grandfather, let alone some of them didn't even have kids,
mm,
like they left nothing behind and they're gone forever.
yeah,
So yeah, it's pretty tough, but that's one of my big whys.
yeah. Well, it sounds like on one hand, like the guys are they're almost living vicariously through you by protecting you and making
Yeah.
sure that you don't go down that path,
Hmm.
because maybe they don't believe that it's something that they can do, but they believe that there's something better out there in the world and they see you trying to do it. So since you're already stepping out and you're already moving in that direction, they just take you and keep nudging you in that direction. They're not going to let you come, you know, live the life that they think maybe they're stuck in. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Which
yeah, and
which
it's
I can
pretty.
only imagine how that feels. I'm not saying that they should think any. I don't have any clue. I cannot you're right. I don't have any clue. I don't know how that
Yeah,
feeling would even be like. How easy would it be to get out of that life? I can't imagine it'd be easy. It'd be tough. You'd have to move away from the city. You'd have to move maybe to a different state. Like you'd have to start over. And that's a
yeah,
tough decision to make. So they see you and they're like, man, you just got to keep going. You got to keep yourself on the straight and narrow. So, that's to have that kind of backing. Like you said, on one sense, it's like it's hard because you know what kind of life they're living and you know the potential threats that they literally have to their life. But at the
hmm,
same time, you can use that as like a guiding light to move you in a direction that can actually potentially help younger kids like that to pull out of that lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure. And it definitely is a lot of pressure,
Mm,
like say, after my friend's funeral, who I grew up with, who was actually like my brother's best friend, my little brother's best friend got shot
mm,
and he survived, but then he ended up basically dying of his gunshot wounds. Like he was brain dead and then he just died, right? So we're
oh
at the
yeah.
funeral and it's like, okay, who wants to speak? And it's a tough time. And so I went up there and I spoke. And after, one of my close friends who, we all grew up together basically. So it was like everybody from the neighborhood or whatever. She cried, like, hugged me and cried and said, "Thank you for being our strength. Like you always pull for us." And she told me that, and my energy was drained from that, from her just saying that to me. It was
Mm,
like, damn, somebody really acknowledged like all of the pressures that I have to internally go through for, my people, for my community, you know what I
mhm,
mean? And it was just like it like literally drained my energy away. Cause
mhm,
it just like took a lot out of me just to hear that. Cause
mm.
it was like, wow, I didn't even think, cause even, crazy, cause couple years back, the guy who passed away, I spoke at his grandmother's funeral,
Wow.
at the same exact funeral home.
Wow.
I'm talking about like three, I have both of their obituary. And then after he was like, man, that was real day one stuff right there, like basically like we day ones. And next thing you know, a couple years later, his grandmother, he died. And I'm speaking at his. And,
Mhm,
after I spoke at his grandmother's funeral, they were like, man, like, thank you for going up there and representing us. You know what I'm saying? Because it's
mhm,
tough. Like some people don't like, man, did you write that stuff down? Like, how did you even come up with that? And I'm like, no, man, I just went up there and talked. You know what I mean? But like that was actually like a really good question. Nobody ever asked me that. But
mm.
yeah, man. So that's why I'm kind of, I could go on and on about it, but yeah, man, that's it's a lot of pressure because it's like, say I'm navigating through the world with people that, I have to basically like meet new friends, do business with people that, that I don't really know. Like I'm going into a terrain where it's like totally different than what I was raised in,
Mhm,
versus like, say, my children, they're in an area where it's like they could do business with people, who they're in elementary school with and stuff like that because they come from stable family households. Like, say, for my daughter, she does not understand how somebody could have a baby and not be married.
mm,
Like she doesn't get it. She's like, "What? Where's her dad? She doesn't have a dad? What? How's that?" But she lives in an area where she sees kids' dads every
that's it.
day.
Mhm,
Like dads are at the parks with their kids. Like there's a group of dads. We're all in a group chat and we say, "Hey, we're about to take the kids to the park." Okay. You go to the park as dads with the kids. Moms are, I don't know, whatever. You know what I mean? But then
mhm.
it's just like, wow, like the friends that I just mentioned, their dads weren't in their life. You know what I'm
Not
saying?
around, yeah.
Yeah, not around. So it's like, just a different type of environment that I have to get used to, and that could be kind of tough.
Well, and again, going back to the generational thing, and it's your dad was around, obviously, and it sounds like his
Yeah.
dad was around, so it's not necessarily that that was happening, but like you're not going to put your kids in that situation to even be able to go down that path, right? You're you're making a conscious choice to create a different kind of life for them and to not even put them in that scenario where they
Mhm.
don't have a father. They n- potentially are going to choose different schools for them. You're trying to put them in a different environment and move your family lineage literally in a different direction, which
Yeah.
which is a very like that's a valid thing to do, to actually choose to like, I'm going to I'm going to shift my lineage, right? You're trying to like
Mhm.
that, like that's hard to do because so many generations, generation after generation, has something that kind of like sticks around and maybe keeps that family from actually becoming something different and actually, shifting and moving outside of their normal path. But when someone decides to cut the tie of the generation and actually move that family lineage into a different direction, like that's a tough thing to do, number one, but it's also like that's a valid thing to do.
Yeah, and people have to also understand that that comes with the growing pains. You know,
Oh yeah.
like you have to go into a terrain where you don't even know what the hell is
Oh
going
yeah.
on. You don't know how people operate and talk. Like people talk different, people walk different. There's different conversations being had. You know, like it's just totally different. And it took me a while, but I pretty much got it down now. Like now I'm looking at myself and I'm listening to myself talk. I'm starting to talk different.
Hmm.
Like I can't cuss as much. I
Hmm.
can't say reckless things. Like a lot of these guys are just like they're totally different than the guys that I worked with. Like say if a fine woman was to, or well, grew up with, if a fine woman was to walk by, it'll kind of be, I can't be like, damn, look at that butt. I
Hmm.
can't go, ooh, look at her. Ooh, ooh.
Hmm.
These guys out here, they don't care about stuff like that. Like they'll see a beautiful woman walk by and it's not like it's like, oh, okay, hey,
Hmm.
I'm married. I'm dedicated to my wife, you know.
Hmm.
But some guys will be like, damn, I would
Hmm.
like, been married for 30 years and still, you know what I'm saying? It's just different.
Yeah, they'll.
And it's hey, it's funny because I think I seen a picture of you in DC at the White House or something like that.
Hmm.
And I was looking at your class. I was like, damn, there's a lot of black kids up in
Hmm.
this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was a minority, like in my
Yeah.
younger years. Like I grew up, I was in Baton Rouge until I was 13 years old, and I was a minority. Like that was a normal thing to me. And like,
Yeah, that was crazy. It kind of hit me. I was like, what's up with all these black kids in this
yeah,
class?
what
That
in the
was
world's
crazy.
going on? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
if you ever find a middle school or high school picture of me, it's a bunch of white dudes. It's much different. I'll tell you that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm glad you acknowledge that, man, because I went through that growing up too. Like,
Mhm.
say, I was only black, being a minority. And then we moved to Carson. And, the Carson, I was basically a mile away from Compton and a couple miles away from Watts. So now I'm going to school with the majority black kids. And I was like, damn, this is different,
Mhm.
till I was like 10 or 11. But then I had to adjust. Like I had to learn a lot of different things, like it was a whole different scenario. Like we weren't talking about gangs and, things like that, Bloods and Crips and all of that when I was at the other school. Like I didn't even know what the hell that was. But
Right.
then when I moved around, like in the black community, I had to pick up on a lot of things fast.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that. It's I think we all grow up in our pockets, right? And unless you choose to like venture outside of that pocket and see how
Mhm.
different the environments are and how different cultures are, then you
Mhm.
you think when you see somebody make a decision that's not in your culture, you go, I don't know why in the world they would make that decision. So like a good example is like an NFL player who grew up in a poor family and then they get all this money in the NFL and then they go blow all the money. And someone
Mhm.
might go, well, I don't know why in the world they'd go blow all that money. Well, it's only because they grew up in an environment where they didn't have any money. So they got money and they're
Right.
like, oh, this is great. I'm going to go blow all this money. So it's not that they're dumb. It's not that they're idiots. It's not anything like that. It's only like the environment that they grew up in
Yeah.
didn't they didn't learn the skills and abilities to utilize the money and unless you make a conscious decision to do that on either side. You can be on the
Mhm.
other side where you grow up in a good family and you grow up financially well off and so on and so forth, and you don't learn the skills to like overcome hardships. Like that's a
Right.
skill. that's
Right.
that's a skill. Like that's something that
Mhm.
you've had to do a lot. But
Mhm.
in whatever culture you're in, you can't look at another culture and judge it because they're making certain decisions. You have to be able to be in the context and go, "Oh, okay, it makes sense." Doesn't mean it's okay.
Right.
Maybe they want you figure out how can you improve it, make it a little better, change it a little bit. But like,
Mhm.
you got to be able to get like put your mind in the context somehow and go and then make sense of it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that blew their money. There's a lot of people that were like uber successes that aren't anymore,
Hmm.
but theirs are just public. You know how many people, were millionaires and their business go bad and next thing you know they don't have nothing, like that happens. It's just not
Hmm.
out there as much, but
Hmm.
a lot of people they're only in tune to what people tell them. They don't
Hmm.
observe other people's lives. Like that could happen. Like unless you're like a teacher, a police officer, or like, something where it's consistent and you could do that forever, you might have a bunch of changes. Like say, oh, the company's gonna move to Texas. Oh, they're asking me to relocate and I don't want to do it. So now I gotta look for another job. Okay, I'm gonna look for another job, but I'm not gonna have as much pay. So that, and now we have to decrease our lifestyle a little bit, because some people that are rich, it's hard to keep that lifestyle up.
Hmm.
Very hard. You have to, you could be stressed out like, man, how am I gonna find a job paying a mortgage of 7,000 a month?
Hmm.
Like that's not in existence. So it's
Hmm.
like this has to work or something has to work where I have to make this amount of money or my family's gonna be up shit creek. So that's just really what it is. Cause a lot of people that, own these massive properties or whatever, once they can't afford it, they have to do something. Like even celebrities. Oh, such and such is selling their home. Like you have no idea why, but
Hmm.
it's probably because they're broke now and they don't
Hmm.
have the opportunities that they've once had.
Yeah. Yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt. Sherm, we've been on here for another hour. Like I think I'm pretty sure like by the end of our I have a feeling we're gonna be jumping back and forth on our podcast for for a while,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I'm all right with.
Mhm.
Um, one more question. What is one thing in the short time that you have been coaching? What's one thing that you've learned that excuse me, what's one thing that you've learned for yourself that has helped you grow? So what's one thing that you've learned about yourself in the short time that you've been coaching people that has helped you grow personally?
Um, maybe that I'm a different breed of a
Mm,
person. That's probably this I say, you listen to the way I grew up, right? A lot of people didn't grow up like that.
mm,
A lot of people don't know what it takes to go as hard as you possibly can until you just can't know more. But I was forced to do that. So I built up that calluses. And so with that being said, I've learned that like, everybody's not the same. Everybody's built different. And it's not that they're soft. It's not that they're, weenies, not that they're suckers. It's like, no, that's just them. Like everyone is different. That doesn't mean that I'm better than them. That doesn't mean that they're worse than me. You know what I mean? So that's like the approach that I look at life now. So say like a lot of people work out with me and they never work out again with me. But I'm like, because you were probably going too hard and they weren't used to that.
mm,
Like say I work out with pro bodybuilder. If I showed you some of the people I work out with that I hang with, you'll probably be like, okay, I could see why, this guy's the way he is. Like say
mm,
I worked out with pros, multiple amount of them.
mm,
People that have been to jail. I'm doing prison workouts and I'm hanging. I'm
mm,
not quitting. I'm not giving up. And they love that. They're like,
mhm,
man, this guy is, I just put a video where I deadlifted 405
mm,
times. You
mhm.
know, fuck my back up, but I did it. You know what I'm
But I
saying?
did. I know
But then
that
it's
feeling.
like,
I'm screwed
yeah.
up for a couple days, but I got it done.
Oh man, I'm screwed up, man.
Mhm,
I could barely get out of bed the past couple days,
mm,
but I'm just knowing that like, okay, I haven't done deadlifts in months. So when I did that, I was kind of surprised. I was very, very shocked because 405 used to be my max, like my
mm,
PR. But doing it 5 times, I was like, what? Like you really did this? But then it's like, say, I can't say that I'm better with someone than someone else because they can't deadlift 225. You know what I'm saying? Like it is what it is. Like that's really what but then I started to think about that. It's like, okay, maybe I have to be a little bit softer on certain individuals and everybody doesn't have that grit. I talked to one of my close friends who's also a bodybuilder, and we were just talking about like working with people and how, the what is it? The recidivism. What's the word that starts with the R where you're trying to keep people in recidivism rate? What is it?
oh,
God
now we're
damn.
both drawing blanks.
Yeah,
You're trying to keep them as clients?
yeah, yeah. What is
Yeah,
that called?
yeah.
Re something.
Uh, dude, I've only been
Yeah.
in business for 10 years. You can't expect me to remember everything. No.
Yeah, it's like the recidivism or something like that.
Yeah,
But basically, it's like try to keep clients, right? But
right,
then
right.
we were just talking about that. But then
Retention rate.
also your retention rate,
Jeez, oh
exactly,
Pete's.
retention rate. We're talking about the retention rate.
Yeah.
So I was talking to him about it, and I was like, you know what, man, it takes a off individual to even work out,
Mm,
and be strong and put yourself through that type of pain willingly every day. You have to be a little off. Like nobody's going to want to wake up and do this. You know what I'm saying? It's like your body is telling you that you're in pain, but you just keep going. It's like who could really, you know what I mean? Like, come on, bro. Like, look at how many people are in here that even have biceps or abs or
mm,
a chest. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
Like, if you go to the average gym, a lot of people aren't like they don't look like they're strong.
mhm,
And I'm not even like, say I go to a gym and I'm like, man, people are staring at me, but I'm like, you have to also think about how you look. I'm sure you get it all the time.
mm,
Like say, you can't hop on the stage right now, probably,
mm,
but then if you go to the gym, people are asking you like, hey man, how'd you
mm,
how'd you get on? Do you get that?
mhm. Yeah.
But
Well,
do
you got
you
a little
but
more size than me, but yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, I'm sure you do, but like we
Mhm,
both don't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know what I'm
mhm,
saying? But
mhm.
then it's like, it's like, man, you have to understand that like what you're doing isn't, something
Not
typical. Like you're a
it's not the
small
norm.
percent. Yeah, it's not the norm. Like this is a small percentage of people,
Mhm,
very small percentage. Like we're in our late 30s.
mhm.
Like nobody in our late 30s is walking around looking like us. Like it's not happening. So it's like I'm me knowing that I'm like, okay, I have to take it a little easy when it comes to people, like it's gonna be very low retention rate. Because another one of my guys like, hey man, how do you keep? And I'm like, to be honest, man, I'm not even really, like it's like I don't know. I'm like, man, if some people are with me, cool. But if not, hey, man, it is what it is. But then a lot of people are more so, they think that they could do it on their own. Like, say one of my guys is like, I'll never hire a personal trainer. I'll never do this. No. And
Mhm.
I'm like, honestly, bro, I used to think the same thing until I started working with a trainer and it totally changed the way I was doing things.
Yep.
I thought I knew what I was doing, but then when I worked with different trainers, talked to different trainers, talk to like the elite of the elite. I'm like, oh fuck, I need to do now. I need to do incline chest press. I'm weak
Mhm,
there. Oh, now I need to do like all kind of different workouts that I've never known because my shoulders used to be shrunk in like this. It's like, damn man, you have to start going harder on your shoulders because you're not blessed with big broad shoulders.
mhm.
So now I'm learning different shoulder workouts. How to where to place your hand. That's a very different thing. How your
Yep.
arm is positioned. I'm like, I had
Elbow
no idea
position. Yep.
about any of this stuff.
Mhm.
Mind to muscle connection. I was like, I didn't even know what that was, and that takes a talent over years. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
Yep.
didn't even know that people lifted lightweight and, just to make sure they get it up and then they squeezed their
Contract,
muscle,
right. Mhm.
they're contracted. You know what I'm saying? And I'm doing that. And I'm like, what? I'm getting worn out with this little weight, but I'm contracting. I'm doing the pauses.
Yep.
And it's like, it's really doing something to the muscle. And
Mhm.
I was like, I didn't even know this was possible. I thought you just go in there and, you know
Lifts
what I
heavy
mean?
weights.
Right,
Yep.
you just lift heavy weights, and it's like, nah, man, it's totally different. But then I learned that through working with trainers,
Mhm.
so it's just like, that's why I'm not like too hard on. I'm like, man, whoever want to work with me, cool. But then you have to have like different things going on. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
it's like it's hard for like some people get in shape and then they'll just. I'm sure you'll see them, after a couple months and be like, damn, what happened? You were just motivated. You were good. I was proud
Mhm.
of you. Now
Mhm.
you let yourself go.
Yeah.
Man, and speaking of that, I watched this I was a big fan of this weight loss show, right?
Mhm.
And man, this one girl, she did the half Ironman.
Mhm.
She actually did my wife's makeup too, which is crazy. Um during her wedding. She didn't even know. She was like, I think I know who that is. Then she contacted the girl, like, oh, that is her. And I was so proud of this woman, man. I was so proud of her. I was like, I'm gonna look her up and like see what she's doing now. She gained all her weight back.
Mm,
I'm talking about if you was to see like her before and where she
mhm,
was after the show, oh my
mhm,
gosh, she was gorgeous.
mhm,
Gorgeous, like a crazy transformation.
mhm,
Let herself go. But then it's like, how is somebody gonna keep up that mentality consistently?
mm.
Like that's a pretty,
You
you
gotta
know what I
make the
mean? That's
choice
a
every
yeah, you
day,
have to make the yeah, every
every
day. And that's a
single day.
hard choice.
Mhm,
A hard choice. So with that being said, I've learned to like be a little, give people a little bit of grace. You know what I'm
mhm,
saying? Like be a little understanding that this isn't a normal thing to do. Like the things that you do aren't normal. You know what I mean? So
mhm,
everybody can't do it. Everybody can't be an entrepreneur. Everybody can't be you. Like you're a special class of people.
mhm.
You know what I mean? And so talking down on people or looking at people differently for not being you is crazy. Because it's like, say
100%.
for like say if we're talking to a guy and he's a plumber and he loves being a plumber and he has to go in there and smell shit, dig and doing all, you know what I mean? Deal with
Mhm,
feces and all that stuff. And I'm like, man, I will throw up if I did that. There's somebody that has to go and clean up, people's, like if they die,
mhm,
they have to go in there, pick up their body, their head blown off or
mhm,
head chopped off, you know what I mean? And they do
mhm.
that every
Crime
day.
scene, yeah.
Crime scene, somebody's a
Mhm,
corner, and they
mhm,
have no problem with it. That's for them. You know what I mean? But I feel like the fitness industry, we think that everybody wants to be fit, everybody wants to be elite, and that's not really the case.
mm.
And I feel
Gotta
like a
meet them
lot
where
of
they
people are,
are.
yeah, you got to meet them where they are. Sometimes you just got to, let them go because it's a very, because people they're starting to say like, man, how do we keep people going? And I'm like, I mean, honestly, bro, it's I don't even really expect it. Like, I know I'm a little off. That's like it will work out. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
Like, it is what it is. But that's probably like one of the biggest things that I've learned from working with people, man. Because some people have life-threatening illnesses and they want to make a change. I give them the program, give them everything. Next thing you know, they quit. And I'm like, bro, it's only
mhm,
been a couple days. Like, I'm trying to help you change your life. What's
mm,
going on? Not answering, not picking up.
mm.
Have health issues, might die, still not caring. I'm like, all right, man. Hey,
Coach
you
can't
know,
can't care more than the client.
right, exactly. Exactly. Because you're gonna burn yourself out if you do that, you know?
100%. Been there.
Right.
Yep,
Right.
I've been there.
Right. Right. So it's like, you just have to find the people that have that internal push that just wants to push. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
like say for me, if I can't go to the gym, I'm in my garage, I'm doing something, you know what I'm saying? But I just have to know that everybody's not gonna be as dedicated as I am.
No doubt. Meet them where they
Yeah.
are. Sherm, good stuff, brother. I appreciate you. Where do people find you?
Militantgrind.com has all of my links. Or Instagram at Daddy Warlocks, that's WARLOCS. I made it that crazy just so people could remember it and they could actually find me. Or at militant grind underscore on Instagram as well. But militantgrind.com has everything.
Good stuff, brother. Sherm, appreciate you, brother. I'm 100% certain we'll do this again.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely, man. Glad to be on this, man. I really appreciate you making this happen, bro. This has been wonderful.
No doubt. We'll do it again. Until next time, Sherm, appreciate you, man.
Thank you.